Good afternoon. An official government review over the cost of the HS2 high-speed rail links suggests the project could reach £106 billion. The Financial Times says the review, which has not yet been published, highlights a considerable risk that the scheme could cost 20% more than the range outlined in a report just 4 months ago. Well, the former deputy chairman of the review, who quit over the report's conclusion, had warned earlier this month that HS2 did not offer taxpayers value for money. Lord Berkeley joins me now live from our Westminster studio. Lord Berkeley, welcome to you. This report was completed more than 3 months ago. Why on earth hasn't it been published yet?
Well, you'll have to ask the people who've published it or are about to publish it, which is the Department of Transport. I'm not sure that it was actually completed 3 months ago, because I welcome some of the content of the one that's been leaked today, but it's a little bit different to the one which caused me so much concern in November, and for which I resigned and then produced my own report.
So you asked your name to be taken off this report. Why? Is it because you object to the cost overruns, or are there other factors as well?
Well, I objected to the recommendation at that time that the HS2 should go ahead regardless of the appalling cost-benefit analysis and the fact that they didn't seem to want to accept that it was going to be over 100 billion. And now they appear to have accepted it, so I think that's really good. It's an element of reality has come into it, but it's still a great deal of money.
Do you think they're still veering on the cautious side with this range that's been leaked to the FT today?
Well, I think it's what you'd expect. It's the same figure that I came up with in my report a week or two ago. The question then is, will it do what's on the tin? Will it provide the services that the people in the Midlands and the North actually want? Or is it going to be a bit of a white elephant?
Well, look, I mean, we talk about this as being potentially a once-in-a-generation project. Shouldn't the way to think about this be viewing it as a sort of multi-century investment, like a kind of Victorian piece of infrastructure?
Well, I think it should be seen as a major investment, but the real problem is that what they say is its prime purpose is to improve the rail services and connectivity in the north, in the Midlands, in Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, Birmingham, Nottingham and places like that. And the problem is it doesn't actually do that. And you need to have an extra, say, 50 billion to improve the commuter services around those cities to make them more like the services we have around London. So if the government's got 150 billion to spare, then it should have HS2 and these regional improvements. If it hasn't got 150 billion, then somebody has to make the choice. And my understanding is that most people, when asked the question, say that the biggest problem is in the commuter services and the local services in the North and the Midlands, which are really very much worse than they are in London. In fact, there was one service on TransPennine last week where 40% of the trains were cancelled. Well, how can you commute on the basis that only 40% of the trains, well, 40% of the trains won't run? It's hopeless.
OK. So you say that what's on the table at the moment won't benefit the North and the Midlands right now. How would you respond to the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, and the West Midlands Mayor, Andy Street, who had a joint piece in the Sunday Times yesterday urging the government to go ahead with this scheme?
Well, yes, but what they didn't say was that they were also urging the government to go ahead with 50 billion extra to improve the services around Manchester, Leeds and places like that. And there's a lot of projects around there which could be started very quickly, including the shrewd platforms at Manchester, where 2 more platforms are needed to get the trains to operate properly. They're still stopped by the government for lack of finance. And I think Andy and his colleagues should be lobbying very hard for those. If in addition they want HS2, well, that's fine if the government provides the money.
Isn't the problem, though, that you now have a Prime Minister who's very, very keen on big infrastructure projects, and there's no other shovel-ready projects out there available that are going to create 30,000 construction jobs, 2,000 apprenticeships in the way that HS2 will now?
Well, I don't think HS2 is actually shovel-ready, because the contracts for the Phase 1 are not complete yet, and there's quite severe problems over them. And secondly, even if there's construction work starting there, there's a lot of other projects that could be started equally quickly, like electrification around Manchester and Leeds, and some new works around Birmingham, which are almost shovel ready and would give the passengers a benefit very much sooner.
Briefly, Lord Berkeley, given the amount of money that's already been sunk into the first phase of HS2, is it too late to pull the plug on that, would you agree?
Well, I think government could pull the plug. I mean, it's a question of whether they've spent $5 billion or so, and they would have to spend 105 or 106 to complete it. Have they got the money, or will they find a way of cancelling it or reducing the spec or something and saving a lot of that money? It's their choice.